Good afternoon. Welcome to a special board meeting for Hollister School District, and we will call the meeting to order at 5:04. And I'll do roll call. President Torres de Luna, who is absent today. Trustee Toasty.
Here.
Trustee Martinez, who is also out this afternoon, and Trustee Grist.
Present.
And Trustee Marks, present. So if we can stand and do the flag salute. Does someone want to lead?
I will.
Okay.
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any discussion? Okay. Then now we're open for public comments for closed session, and there's no one holding on the phone.
And there's no cards.
Okay, great. We'll move on. So can I have a motion to convene to closed session?
I'll make a motion that we convene to closed session.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nobody. So we will now convene to closed session. Welcome back. We're going to reconvene to open session from closed session at 6:07. There were no announcements from closed session, and now we are going to be hearing about the Hollister School District Local Control Accountability Plan 22-23, and Superintendent Sanchez is going to speak to that. Not yet.
Okay, so good evening, Board of Trustees and public. We will be reviewing some general information on the Hollister School District Local Control Accountability Plan. This is an update and an alignment of the current plan, which began last school year and runs until the 2024 school year. The information that we will be hearing tonight is in regards to the 22-23 school year, and this is in addition to the mid-year review, to the federal addendum, and to the different steps that we've taken. No action will be taken tonight. This is a preview of the draft of the Lcap, and on June 28th, at the regular board meeting is when we as a school district will bring the Lcap to the board for consideration for approval. Tonight we have our brand new Director of Educational Services, Dr. Colleen Myers, with us. So congratulations to her. And congratulations to our current also Director of Educational Services. As we know, Caroline Calero will be enjoying retirement, and we're very thankful for the work that she's done on the Lcap, and we're in transition mode, and we're grateful for Dr. Myers, who's here tonight to walk us through this agenda item. So welcome, congratulations, and here we go.
Thank you so much. Good evening, and I'm excited just to jump right in. It's the happiest time of the school year, Lcap writing season. It seems like it's a never-ending process, but here we are. We're going to start, and you'll be reviewing the Lcap for approval, like Superintendent Sanchez said, for next week. This is just a very simplistic communication of what the Lcap has in it and what we are looking forward to changing. It is a living document. It can move and breathe and change, as you know. And so this tonight just presents the changes that will move forward in actions and how we're going to, in my opinion, really support our unduplicated students, our foster youth, our English learners, and our socioeconomically disadvantaged students. It's a fabulous plan. All right, so as long as I find the right button, there are 4 goals in this Lcap. Those are unchanged. They are rolling forward from last year, and as Superintendent Sanchez had said, that this is a plan that will be in existence through 2024, okay? So there's the 4 goals as you're used to. Goal 1, the actions previously included all of these. There were, all of these actions included teacher assignment, retention, and recruitment, the supplemental instructional materials, professional development, supportive instructional supervision, footsteps to brilliance, early literacy intervention, administrative support for ELs, high leverage instructional strategies, formative testing. I squish those 2 together. ELA is its own action and math is its own action. So if you're counting the dots, that's why I have 1 less. And then summer school. So the changes for this goal that are proposed are the early literacy intervention, and this would be an inclusion of maximizing the library media specialist positions, so that they are intently supporting English learners, foster youth, and socioeconomically disadvantaged. And then also just really be more specific in the high leverage instructional strategies, calling out the instructional minutes that Hollister School District goes beyond the state minimum. And it's also preserving that collaboration time where teams, grade levels, and teachers can come together and be purposeful with supporting those unduplicated students. Then, as you know, the RISE was removed. As we are moving forward, we're hoping to see all of our children in person and serve them appropriately. Any questions on Goal 1 changes? Okay. Goal 2 is our safe, engaging, and inclusive classrooms in schools that meet the social emotional needs of all students. So this goal has 2 actions, and it still has the 2 actions: social emotional support, professional SEL, which is social emotional learning development. This change, as you know, has been in action 1, social emotional support. It will assign 1 mental health therapist, school counselor, and or school social worker to each of the 2 comprehensive middle schools, so that those students will get support. Again, really being purposeful about serving our foster youth, homeless, and socioeconomically disadvantaged. Which, by the way, as you may, I'm sure you're so excited to read this LCAP and it's going to keep you up at night. But once you get to the part where we have our count for unduplicated, Hollister has a really high unduplicated count or percentage. So that helps us in serving more students with these supplemental concentration funds. So it's to our advantage to have that number. The threshold is about 55, but ours is above that, so we're able to really leverage those funds for more students. Any questions on Goal 2?
No.
Okay. Alrighty, Goal 3, ensuring equity for all students in academic programs and social engagement. We have trauma-informed practices training and anti-discriminatory disciplinary practices. These 2 actions have no changes. We'll roll forward, increasing the training for staff in trauma-informed practices, also doing our work with PBIS and capturing kids' hearts. So this goal has been preserved.
Do we have a percentage of how many students we suspended for last year?
We would have that in our student information system, and we can identify that broken down by group, by subgroup. I don't have it off the top of my head, though.
Okay. Is it possible that we could get something for next week to show how much, to have a balance of how the SEL teams did a percentage of how much lower we suspended, to do a cause and effect?
I can send that to the board.
Yeah.
I can pull a report and send that. When we reported the LCAP mid-year review in February, as you recall,
Right.
it was greatly reduced
I
at
know,
that
and
midpoint.
I'd just like to see a year end, because
Sure.
that definitely shows a cause and effect and how important the SEL team is to our
Absolutely.
children.
Absolutely, and I believe, I can't recall if the metric has been updated this month, but there may be of the last suspension percentage and rate may be included in the LCAP already underneath that goal. So in the metrics there, so.
When does the state do its dashboard? Is that going to be
Well,
in August?
since, COVID, so that will populate over the summer.
Yeah.
And then we'll have it for fall.
Because I just, it's a number that our community has been looking and searching for, and we really need to, I'd like that to be publicized once we get it.
Yes, yep, it's very important. Yes, indeed. Any other questions for Goal 3? Okay. Goal 4, developing high levels of parent involvement and education where all parents have the opportunity to be involved in their child's education. This previously had 2 actions: the parent engagement services provided by district level staff and parent support services. So this is where I really feel post-COVID that the district can leverage these funds to really support our community. As you know, teachers dealt with a lot more than just academic needs. They had behavioral concerns, they had social emotional concerns. So the realignment of this goal this year is really something that I'm excited about because it's very, very purposeful about getting our families involved and very intentional with the services that we're able to provide. And it's not like it's an extra layer, it's really just a refocus and being intentful on certain services. So this goal has just the changes in the parent support services. We have included the health clerks, so their communication, something they do already, but let's make sure that they're reaching all of our foster youth. Let's make sure that they're reaching all of our health, our socioeconomically disadvantaged, and supporting parents where they need if they have a health concern or if they need information to help their family. Also adding that including the second district nurse so that we can, again, increase communication and support services to families so that they have a place to go. It would be great for them to be able to come to their community school and say, I need X, Y, and Z, or us being proactive and say, we did our oral health and this is what you might be able to do if you're interested. The same idea with the school secretaries. We know that they're in communication with parents 1,000 times a day, right? And so just being mindful of checking back in on our foster youth, our English learners, and our socioeconomically disadvantaged. So this is something that I'm very excited because they kind of already do the work, but we're able to be more loud and proud about it because it is what they're doing.
The migrant parent liaison, is there a reason they're not there?
So that would be covered under a different, that's under a title grant. So this is really more of the supplemental and concentration.
I see.
And so
Because that's who I use all of that.
yes, yeah. And so it's just another layer of support that's available, but it wouldn't be included in the supplemental.
Gotcha.
I mean, we can include whatever we want in the LCAP, but it's kind of redundant when you have those services included elsewhere.
Right, but as a teacher, when I'm looking for somebody and I need a Spanish speaker and they're migrant, that's who I went to.
Yep.
Because I even tagged my role, so I knew if I needed somebody to help me, that's what I went.
Yep. And they are a fantastic resource.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Okay, but we don't, but we can't put it here because it's not S&C.
We can, we can include it if we'd like. It just is, this is the change moving forward being that we're trying to declare how we're better serving our unduplicated students. And so those would be very specific to migrant, we wouldn't want to supplant, we want to make sure we provide supports
I could only use this for migrant students. Okay.
And migrant, just if I may, migrant has its own annual plan. It's called a district service agreement, and it captures everything specifically and solely for migrant education, the migrant education program, funded through Title I Part C, which are migrant funds.
Sure.
So they have their own plan.
Okay, but the LCAP though, if I was just a regular parent and I wanted to know where my tax money is going, so the migrant doesn't go in there because it's not being paid from that tax dollar. Is that right? I'm confused.
Okay, great question. So this plan reflects positions, programs, professional development, ideas and concepts that are funded out of supplemental and concentration, which is one pocket of money that lives within unrestricted funds. Then we have, if we're talking about migrant is a super supplemental program that is restricted in another pot of money. So it's different. It's both federal and state.
Well, this is where parents and everybody gets confused because it's a different pot of money.
Sure.
Even more members. Okay, but yeah. But I just, because teachers I look at these things and I want to make sure teachers know this is a avenue that they can get help
of course.
from.
And I think that's the whole intent of the realignment of this and being more specific in the language, is that teachers know exactly that they can ask health clerks for, guidance, or the
Right,
district nurse
right.
or the school secretary.
And see, I would never have thought about asking a health clerk unless it was a health question.
And so it's, also continuing on, we are including 30% of assistant principals in that too, so that they're being more purposeful in serving these unduplicated students, and then the principal support. So now we can provide these services to teachers and parents, and we can say it's in our LCAP that this is how we're increasing and improving our services for our unduplicated students. And that's the exciting part, is that, it's something that of course we do already at sites, but now we're being very specific and we're saying this is exactly how we are going to serve them.
Right.
Yeah. Any questions on goal 4? Okay. So then I just wanted to follow up on the justification for our changes, because as you'll see, the 94-page document of the LCAP is quite lengthy. It has lots of explanations and justifications. In a nutshell, the realignment plan recognizes supplemental services are necessary to increase and improve services for foster youth, socioeconomically disadvantaged, and English learner students. The realignment provides unduplicated students with a higher level of support and success. It describes changes that Hollister School District can better serve unduplicated students by prioritizing staffing and aligning Hollister's base program, supplemental programs going forward. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we want to open the public hearing, and that includes public comment for those who are not here in person. Board policy number 9323 allows each speaker 3 minutes. Members of the public may call in and state their public comment at 831-630-6320. The Brown Act prohibits the board from taking action at this meeting on items discussed during this time. And it looks like we do have public comment.
Okay, we have one speaker, Nicole.
All right, good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Sanchez. I hope your summer's going well despite this blazing heat. So I spent all of today reading the Lcap report. So first, I think it's important to highlight our successes as a district, and the Lcap does that pretty well, such as the fact that the percentage of students in reading intervention has declined this year. And this shows that what teachers, aides, etc. are doing to help teach students to succeed, and that's why we're all here. While it is good to stop and smell the roses, to me, when I was looking at the LCAP and all the identified areas of need, I felt like the rose garden was a little on fire. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is what was concerning to me in the LCAP report. All right, number 1. So for example, and I quote, implementation of a district-wide social emotional team, which placed at least one full-time counselor and or mental health therapist at every site for one-on-one or small group counseling, provided a place for students and parents to feel safe, welcome, and supported. So it made students feel safe. And as we know, the SEL team has been laid off. And another part of the report that hurt was that 44% of secondary students expressed they don't feel safe at school. And that was with that California Healthy Kids survey, I believe. And those are my kids. I'm a secondary school teacher. That means almost half of the kids I teach don't feel safe at school. And Mays is going to go from 2 counselors to just 1 counselor next year. And obviously counselors help students feel safe at school. They're there in times of distress. They build positive school culture. You've heard from the counselors before. And then another shocking statistic, 80% of elementary students and 90% of secondary students express, so the majority of students don't feel a meaningful connectedness at school. So they don't feel connected to school. Therefore, the parents probably don't feel connected. Where are they? If a student doesn't feel connected, then they're not going to really learn. And parent and student feedback show we want the SEL team to come back. So I know there's ways for the district to hire back the SEL team, so I strongly support any plan that would have that happen. The second thing, I'm not sure what intervention is going to look like next year. I'm really hoping there's a plan, because I know elementary PE teachers at some sites would take half the kids out. Those kids would get PE while the other half got intervention, and they would switch. So I'm just hoping there is a plan so that we can continue to use what the LCAP pays for, like Orton-Gillingham, preventing academic failure. And another success that required elementary PE teachers was PLC time. So the elementary school teachers either did, wow, okay, well, quite a bit more. I just worry about my elementary colleagues because they have to teach a new subject and they're going to lose out on that PLC time that the elementary teachers also provided. So I'm just scrolling here. And I just think teachers are really going to be burnt out next year. So this is sort of the reality, is that they're going to have to teach elementary PE next year, which they haven't done in like 8 to 10 years. So it's really like a new subject for a lot of them. Meanwhile, single subject teachers at the comprehensive middle schools, they get a degree in one subject. I'm qualified to teach history, social science. But I'm going to be teaching 3 completely different subjects next year. That's 3 preps. 7th grade world history, 8th grade US history, and art. And so that's because of declining enrollment at the middle schools. And I'm like, I get it, but it's just gonna be a bit crazy next year because I've only ever taught 2 and most of them only ever taught 2 different subjects or just 1. So that's concerning. Another thing was the overall average daily attendance in the report. I thought it was 93.3%, which is great because I know we were really concerned with the Omicron wave and what was going to happen with that. So that's really good. After school sports, HESTA totally supports. We absolutely want that. I saw that as parents wanted that as part of the survey. And I'm really hoping that we will have it next year. Parents also supported smaller class sizes. Yes, I don't have to say more about that. Yes, of course. Next year, I'm hoping that the district goes to each staff meeting at each site because we know each site is unique. So this year, it was just like one meeting with the district. It was me and like a couple people on the HESTA budget and LCAP committee. And that was really our shot. There was also the survey, but it was sent on Parent Square, and that seems like it's for parents because it's called Parent Square. So just hopefully next time a little bit more comprehensive approach to gathering that feedback. Almost done. Something that's really concerning that I'm still trying to process and do research about, because I just looked through the LCAP today, was increasing instructional minutes. So it's 54,000 required instructional minutes for grades 4 through 8. Right now, for example, Mace is at 62,000. So they're about 6,000 over. And my concern is that if we're now extending the workday, teachers are teaching a lot more subjects next year. So I did the research. It makes sense logically to increase the day. If students are in school more, they'll learn more. But just a quick Google search shows that that's not really the case. There's no direct correlation between longer days and higher achievement. And in countries like Finland, Singapore, and China have not taken the longer day approach. I think what's more important is if a child does an after-school sport. In Japan, they are required to join a club or do a sport after school, and that increases meaningful connectedness to school, as we referenced earlier in what children lacked. Last thing is you'll see tonight that you will be told to build up your reserves. And we're all for fiscal solvency. I think you guys are on the right path. You're doing a good job with that. But 10, 11, 12% reserve, we do think that's going to be too high. And last thing, HESTA's LCAP and Budget Advisory Committee just looks forward to working with the district next year and hopes it to be in a more regular capacity. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
No calls.
Okay. Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing. And the next is 9B, which is the public hearing on Hollister School District 2022-2023 budget. And our speaker is Scott Wilbur, interim CBO.
It's a pleasure to be here this evening and talk about a very intriguing and powerful opportunity that's in front of us. Our budget today is built on some assumptions. The assumptions of these budgets are promoted through input from school services, our county office of education, and show some general trends that are positive, which we're very happy to see. This budget assumption does not include proposals that are not guaranteed or delivered. These are things that we can count on, and it is a window into an ever-changing world. If we take a look at our COLAs, we know that there is some good news coming in the sense that there is a COLA and a COLA increase. You can see that over the next 3 years in the budgets we're proposing a general increase in COLA, which is very welcome. Also, too, where there's some stuff in there, too, about our ADA. There's a higher than regular ADA proposal or projection that might change very soon, but we are trying to do everything that's reasonable, responsible, but also looking at the possibilities of things and how they may change. Lately, most of the proposals are coming as 3-year averages, and the hold harmless is over officially, so we will have to go forward using a 3-year average, but there's a lot of proposals and things that are changing and coming that we'll be excited to talk about sometime in July. I'll talk more about that later. We also are taking a look at the improvement in terms of ongoing funds we see potential, and we also are looking at growth in cost for PERS, but STIRS is stabilized. That took a $2.3 billion investment from the state. So the idea that as we go forward, costs will increase is very much a part of the scenario and the things going forward. The May revise brought significant change and speaks to both a half full and a half empty perspective. And what I mean by that is, I'm a positive person, I think it's half full. But these are also things and issues that are going to grow and become more clear in the next few months. Specifically, we talked about that the tax revenues grew. And so by Prop 98, that means more money will be coming to schools. That's a really positive thing. The challenge, though, is that the same law also means that that level of money is peaking. The likelihood of us having these funds in the future is not possible. So that's the important part of looking at this as a wonderful opportunity and a chance to build, specifically with the COLA. The COLA increase is significant and something to celebrate, period. But the question of whatever is coming in July is one that we have to look at deeply, because the governor and the legislature are not on the same wavelength. And the great part of a democratic process is two sides get a chance to work out what that's going to be. And we see that now. The challenge for us at a school site level and a district level is that the money coming, besides our COLA augmentation that we count on, the 6%, the 6.56, which is over 1.5% more than what we assumed earlier, is the question of is the funding ongoing or one time? Is the funding going to be unrestricted, which we get to decide at a local level, or will it be restricted, which defines and determines our choices and options? For us to look at potentials without knowing those questions is not possible, and one that we are going to be cautiously optimistic, but looking at the challenges coming or the possibilities, it's half full, it's half empty, it's going to be both until we get those numbers. This budget reflects on things you can count on, with the exception of probably a little bit higher ADA in this first year because I was using one of the governor's proposals. I'm just going to say that a little early right now. That's why we have a little spike there. I've heard loud and clear the desire to look at more ADA being as much as possible, but it doesn't affect the stability of the overall budget and the change that occurred only by Friday. So these things are changing by the minute. In looking at our prospective or projected general fund revenues, we have unrestricted, restricted, and combined general fund together. You're going to see on this that we are highlighting the fact that we have funds, but specifically we want to start looking at it and really at the behest of our Lcap and looking at the Lcap together, the difference between the unrestricted general fund and the amount that's in there, the supplemental concentration, is about 15% of the total. It is an unrestricted resource. The same thing though with the investment of a plan that makes it something that we commit to in the future, which makes it a unrestricted but a committed unrestricted resource, which again we're going to start thinking about as we start looking at some of the graphs and things that are coming. We are also going to need to look at specifically as we are looking and honoring our contributions. You can see how unrestricted funds, the funds that are in parentheses, about $15 million, is in the unrestricted, and then it moves to the restricted. These are payments that we put into for our facilities, which is a state law, and also our very important contribution to special education, which has maintenance agreements and things going forward. So both of those are in the budget, and you can kind of see, if I can, the ability for it to move means it's not a plus or a minus, it's just moving a category. And unrestricted funds are going to look a lot bigger in terms of an amount than they are. But that's okay. We were going to work that through, and we have a lot of time to look at those together. It also takes a look, too, at something there, too, is that our contribution, or a tax contribution to Hollister Prep, is outside of our budget. And that's about 1.461. So that's also growing, too, because their student growth in ADA is solid and consistent. That's a part also of our budget because we oversee that charter also. Going forward, here's a graph that kind of puts together this concept of monies and how they're divided. It looks like Pac-Man, and I enjoyed that. It kind of dates me a little bit. But if you take a look at where Pac-Man is going, the biggest chunk, or one of the biggest chunks outside of Pac-Man's voracious appetite, is the supplemental concentration. And those are the funds that we talked about with the Lcap today. And it's super important that we honor that by making sure that we do everything in our power to make sure we have correct and accurate numbers on our students that fit in the UPP, but also that as a chunk of our budget, it's something that has to be committed into our overall plan. Our district still has a very high percentage of unrestricted funds that are invested in our jobs, people, and services and supports. That has to be accounted for in the overall because there is not in our budget a lot of room. And that's okay because we're investing in directions that are responsible and good. If you take a look at the restricted funds up there in the corner, it's about 15% of the overall. We've got chunks or little slices of pieces all together, but it gives you a good idea. This year, you're going to notice that the restricted is very different than in previous years or previous budget, even from the second interim that I presented, because the amount of federal funds and state funds that are restricted and coming to the schools are not going to be the same as the COVID funds. And we'll talk more about that going forward because we do still have some one-time funds that are important. So looking at our expenditures, both projected through this year, unrestricted and restricted, I remember that it's very important that we look at both. We're going to maintain both going forward. Is you're going to take a look here and see that we still have significant investments in both certificated, classified, and benefits. And you're going to see it's about 90.5 of our overall unrestricted fund. So that 90 mark is something that we've been looking at and building with and building towards and maintaining. That is a part of this, but it's uptick to 0.5. That's something we'll have to look at and maintain and balance going forward. Also taking a look here too at the total overall, the restricted there in terms of that budget is going to include half of the funds. So you notice that with the earlier slide showed it at 15. If you take a look here, it's up to 26. So we've made that shift from unrestricted to restricted, and you can see that there's significant employment and support for our families and our kids and everything we do. So that's where we are there. Combined budget we're projecting to be about 74 million, 74.5. Here is a very important graphic that I learned from the second interim to now, important in terms of highlighting and showing. And again, it speaks to this idea of all of our unrestricted funds together are about 90.5, 43.65 million. And this 9.5 that's left over covers books, and supplies, and services, and contracts, and other pieces. It's very important to know that we have that, but we're at the highest end or the higher end of healthy. That's just something to look at. Will this change or could this change? Definitely. There's several factors that could affect this, but it's premature to describe all the myriad of ways that could happen. We'll wait until July to look at what all the proposals, again, is it ongoing? Is it one time? Is it restricted? Is it unrestricted? All those elements will become clear. We know, though, and this is the great thing to celebrate and to say 5 months later than a previous presentation, is that we can commit to, with this budget and what we know is for sure, we can stay within the plan. And that's going to be part of the thing I'll close with in terms of talking about is staying the course and the health and the vitality of this budget versus a different scenario that we talked about. So going forward, we have a general fund ending balance, and this is another celebration, I think. And again, it's kind of a funny thing to say a celebration is looking at an ending fund balance. But about 5 months ago, we talked about what could be left at the end of this budget. Now again, knock on wood, this is early. We have, yeah, there you go, for me especially. If we take a look at this budget, we projected about a $2.5 or $2.4 million beyond our 3%, beyond our reserve for economic challenges and uncertainty. And to think of a budget, you want to think again about percentages of a budget. We're taking what we know, we're shooting for an outcome that is full of variables and changes, and we want to try to deliver this, in this case, this last year, $100 million budget on track from February or from March till now. If you have a 1% variance in a big budget like that, that's $1 million, and it's scary because you have to maintain and look and balance. We're very fortunate right now. All our projections are kind of putting us within a half of 1%. We right now project beyond our reserve for economic uncertainties, and again, it's early, about a $1.8 million reserve of a reserve. So that would be about a 2.8, 2.7 reserve potentially. Now that could change. It could become a little more when we close the books and look at everything all together, but that we could have a second interim, predict, and then for the rest of the year commit to something like that. It shows that I think we've got a good plan and that we have something that we can count on going forward, and it's no longer the most important part of the first part of the plan was to figure out what we really have. Seems like that's solid, and that's super happy to say. That's super happy. We're also going to look at here the 1.8 million or 1.861 is going to have to also be a statement at a budget adoption potential to describe that this is above the 3% minimum. Every district will have to describe any amount of funds over that 3% and speak to what we're thinking. And for us, it's going to be important to note that we're going to have a deficit next year also, at least as we see it at this moment, at this time right now with all of our projections and plans. And so that amount we will save to cover whatever comes. And again, a $500,000 deficit is wonderful to contemplate considering where we were this year, but that could change, both positively or negatively, and we need a little cushion to make sure that we can do that.
Okay. Were you with them on when you said the deficit?
I'll show you in the multi-year plan. I can
Okay.
actually relate that pretty clearly.
That would be great.
And again, that's a part of our multi-year plan we had from the second interim. We're mostly on track. There's a little bit here and there that'll shake out, but we're on track. That's the important part. So this is that part where the multi-year projection. I'm going to come up here just to kind of show you. What we're looking at is the same data on tables has now been compiled over a 3-year projection. We have our revenue on top, the good stuff coming in. The expenditures is what we've invested in, and that includes the Lcap, and it includes our labor, and includes all of the programs and books and supplies and everything we buy. In this next year, we're projected to have about, in this budget, in terms of unrestricted funds, we're in the unrestricted world. Remember, unrestricted is the part where we have choice, or at least more choice, because you're seeing that there's a lot of the unrestricted that becomes part of plans and things, but that's okay. About $47,753,000. If you take a look at the bottom of the expenses and you compare the expenses to the revenue, we're about $500,000 off.
Right.
That's what we shared with you in March.
Right.
That we're still able to say that means the course, we're on the course, we're staying the course. The bold work and the important decisions that had to be made were maintained. We're on track. We are in that 90% range. We still need to look. Otherwise, that $500,000 will become much bigger and not sustainable. For right now, with everything we know for sure, we're in the game. If you look at then the second year out, the 23-24, if all things remain the same, and that's a big assumption, but we're mindful of the things that we've talked about, we will have a $500,000 surplus, which for a budget turnaround of 1 year is very significant. If you look at the third year out, if we stay the course, we should be up over $2 million. That's $2 million above the $500,000. That's also above the unrestricted 3% we're not allowed to ever touch. So think of the 3% reserve for economic uncertainty as that indicator that tells the state they need to come. It's like a radiation badge when it turns from that neutral color to bright red. So that's what that 3% is, but we're projecting, if everything stays the same and we stay the course, we should be out of our fiscal challenge, stay positive. I mean, not just a perspective of half empty, half full, but budget certification staying positive. and we should be able then to meet our responsibilities. That being said, the restricted multi-year projection has also a pretty flat trajectory. And that's because most of those programs or most of those expenditures are set by plans and based on consistent federal funds. We projected flat. Will that change? I don't know. We're going to count on what we have. So for example, the federal revenue is about 3.5 or 3.5 million. We're projecting that forward into 3 years. They could do a cost adjustment. They could do anything. But right now we feel very good that that's consistent. And if you take a look at there tend to be a deficit here, a little bit more, a little bit less, but we still have a surplus that we get to make decisions with, as much as restricted funds will let you. Now, you lead us to the next part of our presentation. So we have other restricted funds. We have a child nutrition fund that is run very well, very responsibly. We have a deficit projected for this next year, but that's going to be something that we can look at. There is a surplus. And we also take a look at Fund 35. There's a building reimbursement portion of that budget that we're going to have to examine and look at after a FIT plan, which tells us about what our facilities are and what we're looking at. The board has some decisions in the future. We have Fund 25 developer fees. That's a significant portion, something we can look at and invest in also. So even though these funds are restricted, there's options and things to look at. And finally, too, we're putting our ESSER 3 and our educator effectiveness funds also in this proposal or this perspective. This is money that hasn't been spent. It is something I will report on every month for our budget reports as long as you have me. And we'll keep track of those funds going forward. They're not going to be in books and supplies. They're going to be in these presentations.
Okay.
We're going to make sure books and supplies going forward are funds
Books and
that
supplies.
exactly. And again, this is not a game or anything other than being really clear to be very sure that these are those funds, this is how much they are. We'll do a monthly accounting. And if that changes or how that changes, you'll be very much aware of that. And the books and supplies then will be funds.
Books and supplies.
That's what we'll do. So you'll notice there's no expenditures or balances. That's what the balance is. That's a page that is yet to be written.
Right.
So past, budget, present, and future. Yay, the second interim was accurate. A lot of good folks worked really hard on that. That's something I get to talk about, but a really good business department, assistance of our consultants, some friends that we've had and continue to have helped stabilize us. And we were fortunate that we had some really wise use of our one-time funds. The one-time funds provided us an avenue to stave off challenges that were coming, bold action with the board, and I think good leadership and really kind, thoughtful leadership made sure cuts were not deep, but across. Cuts are hard anyway, but in the general, we made sure that the second interim would allow us to get into a healthy, now stay the course plan. We have a fiscal stabilization plan. We are using it. If we stay the course, given what we know for sure, we will come out of this financial challenge and we'll come out with money, which is fantastic. It means we probably, in the first time in a while, have been able to, through position control and wages, to keep that 90%, although it's changing. We gotta be careful, we gotta watch. I'm sorry, I don't wanna be too half full.
Right.
I gotta be balanced. And that's the other part about me. I really enjoy going and being able to present this. At the same time, we also have to look at building up our reserves. The reserves are going to be essential going forward because we have costs about $1 million a year that will incur every year. And whatever we have as a reserve, if the COLA doesn't come, or we don't have cost increases, or we don't mind the surpluses we have, we know at steps and column with insurance costs set to rise. We have the challenge too that we are very generous and supportive of our families at a high percentage. That's something that we have to prepare for. And that's a part of overall compensation. When we look at supporting all of our families and all the people who work with us, we have very healthy and supportive plans, but to maintain that, we obviously need to make sure that reserves are there. We probably have the potential to have a reserve that's back to 10%. Of that 10%, though, it's a little misleading. 3% is the reserve for economic uncertainties that can't be touched, which leaves 7%. That 7%, if you take a look at an overall budget, that's over about $100 million. That's about $7 million. Last year we had some challenges, or this year, sorry, we had challenges that were approaching 10. So all those things aside, a reserve is going to help us go into this next part, which has some uncertainty. We also have to look at some things that are looming on the horizon beyond the things we normally talk about, which is insurance, exception column, and those elements. We also have to talk about future liabilities that were brought about or talked about in our last audit for OPEB. That's an $8.3 million cost that will come in the next 10 to 15 years that nothing has been put aside to support. Nothing. They would only be paid for by future funds, which we don't know what they are and what they mean and how we can support that. We also have tech refresh challenges. We have televisions that are over 4 years old, and we're going to need to at some point look at how we replace or how do we take care of those. They're used 180 days very intensively through the day. We have Chromebook challenges in the sense that we don't have necessarily a surplus of back machines to share. It's something that we use every day in all of our classrooms now, and it's a part of our instruction. So we have to look at that. And then the idea too, community schools. What a wonderful opportunity we have to remake and revision our future and what schools and how we serve communities. And that's also a cost that's part of that future. The other thing that we have to do, and I think we're getting a really good jump on that, is defining what is base and what is supplemental. What is it that we support as a base part of our program that we need? What are the supplemental things we continue to support so that we have the most flexibility we can to support our people and our directions? Yeah.
So how do we decide who is going to define that? Is it going to be the cabinet and site administrators? Is it just going to be the cabinet? How do you foresee, Superintendent Sanchez, the definition? Because I hope it's something that you come to us to put a rubber stamp, that you come up with I don't think it should come from the board. It needs to come from the cabinet, and I would hope site administrators, and I would hope our labor partners as well.
So I think we're on track with that description of what you just described of the process. We have spent some time as a cabinet team. We've spent some time looking at local districts, faraway districts. We've looked and we've held a meeting with administrators specifically to talk about base and supplemental. We've looked as a leadership group from the point that the LCAP was created and required of a school district, what was in place at that time, what we've added since then each and every year, to determine really what is considered base. What is the most basic of programs that could run a school? And I think that we have a very good idea of that. And throughout the years, we have added staff. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, because staff works with students, and we've fleshed out this bare bones model that would be the base program, and those would be things that we would consider as supplemental. When we look at, for example, when our families call schools and there's an office manager and a school secretary, instead of an auto robot dialer, press 0 for this extension, that would be, supplemental. We offer music at our schools. That's supplemental. We offer, we talked about the liaison support. I would say that's supplemental. To have the most basic of needs met, most definitely our classroom teachers. Without our teachers, we cannot educate our students. That is a part of the base program. When we add certificated staff, for example, perhaps the intervention teachers, those could be viewed as supplemental, because our instruction, our primary instruction, comes from our classroom teachers. We absolutely need a principal to run the school. Prior to a certain time period, we as a district did not have assistant principals. Those could be viewed as supplemental in addition to the principal, and that's why we've classified them under, supplemental concentration funds. So we have this idea, we have a concept, We have a model that we'll be sharing with the board. And it's been a very long process to look
can
at all
imagine,
all of
Because
the.
I don't think you'd want me on your board.
And that's not, definitely not something I would want to do in isolation.
Right. Yeah, but you will have teachers and.
We definitely could share this with Hesta. I know that we've talked,
But I think classified,
Sure.
especially when you're talking about secretaries.
right?
You need to have some classified people as well, because when you made, that you said, of course, it's important that we have teachers,
Mm-hmm.
but, you know, how many students are you gonna put in a teaching classroom?
Right.
And if it's a special ed classroom, you know, how many instructional assistants?
Sure.
So that's where we need to have everybody's input.
Absolutely. I agree with you, and that's something that we will flesh out, and we definitely have
Well,
on
I really like that.
the plan.
That this is, thank you, because I think that's a really important part of this whole process. And I really, I especially commend how when we started to get in trouble, that you took the cabinet and you guys remember how you found out and you got us all, you know, you came to us after you had figured things out and where we had to do this and this and this at the very beginning. I mean, you really took charge, Erica, and that's where we had gotten to here. And that was with you taking charge of the situation.
It's definitely a team effort, and I'm part of the team. I'm
Yeah,
just
but
one
you led that
one
process.
piece of that.
No, but you led the process, and we can't forget that.
Thank you.
In closing, the piece that we have to look at going forward is that with the advent of funds that we've never had before and will by law not have again,
Right.
we are going to want to have the most flexibility we can for the upcoming economic uncertainty that isn't just about funding or inflation or flow of funds, but the question of what is coming and what does that mean? I mean, if you look at any newspaper or any daily internet source, the questions about costs and the tightening of international pieces of supply chains and energy, Ukraine wheat, the question ultimately of the interest rates going up. Anyway, all those pieces are confirming or guiding, and we need the most flexibility to meet those challenges so that, using our base and supplemental and our commitment to our kids, we make sure that our students have the best.
Yeah.
And especially in this community, because it's a wonderful community. So in tying that together, that's I guess the last part of the presentation. There's some dates coming up that you'll have where we'll start to flesh out the governor's proposal, the legislature's proposal. We're kind of past that now. We should get answers soon. The budget numbers are supposed to come July 1st. They may be later. Whenever they come, we will have time after that date to look at how that changes what we do and look at things. A very important day coming up too is in the middle of October. That's an important day for us internally because we can look at staffing and see where we are and if our projections are there. I add that only because it's a pivotal day for us. The models we have, the things we have going forward. Audited actuals are coming also in mid-September. First interim in December. That's our first real snapshot of how healthy the budget is within that one of two or one of three potential timeframes. So monthlies will continue, but an overall accounting of what it is and what position we're in, given those scenarios and what options we have, will be shared during those times. At that point, questions?
Do we have any questions from the board? Do we have, okay. I'm convening the hearing for the public hearing on Hollister School District 2022-2023 budget. Is there anybody do either of you want to make any public comment regarding this first presentation? Okay, is anybody on the phone?
There was someone on the phone, but they disconnected. I don't want to interrupt Mr. Wolf.
Okay.
Yep.
If you're out there, call in again and go ahead, Jan.
I had a question about Have these preliminary numbers been shown to the county? Yeah, you're not walking away that fast. Is the county apprised of these numbers yet?
So the county's advised us on what avenues of funding we can look at, or what's the best way to build our model. The whole state is using the LCFF calculator,
Okay,
which gives continuity to all the numbers. They will get a chance to see and review this after it's approved. The proposed budget will then go to a phase next week on Tuesday for a question of adoption. After that, they would then have a month and a half or potentially longer to look at and dig into the budget. So that would be the next steps.
okay, so they haven't seen this yet.
No, but they've guided us on how
Right.
to craft it and to create it, so
Right.
it will not be surprising. And there was a question or two where I did ask for guidance.
Right.
So we've been maintaining and connecting with the county through this process, and they work really well and been very helpful.
Okay. I think we're pretty good, right? Anybody have any questions? We asked them.
I think it was very clear, thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you did a great job.
I guess that closes the public hearing. So now we're in a discussion action item 10A, approval of county treasurer's investment of funds report for the quarter ending March 31, 2022. It's recommended that the Board of Trustees accept the county treasurer's investment of funds report for the quarter ending March 31st, 2022. And Scott, it shows Scott Wilbur as the speaker.
You thought you were getting away again, huh?
Never will. So yes, the report in front of you is a part of the fiduciary responsibility the county has to, and through the county, in terms of the investment treasurer part, to communicate to the county office of ed, that communicates to all the folks that have their money in there. This is a combined safe fund. If you take a look and you read through there, you can see that it's invested in bonds and a lot of securities that have the ultimate in safety. After the fiasco in Orange County in the early 90s about their investment, there's been very strict state and federal law guiding what we can invest in, that our money is there, means that it's safe. There is some profit that occurs in there. You can see that there's some variation from month to month in terms of different ways to use safe funds to create some surplus. But it's not a money-making venture. It's there to protect and to keep our funds together as a county, both civic and also educationally and other entities that have state and federal funds. And we're in pretty safe hands in terms of the amounts and the investments and the things that are invested. If you take a look too, specifically, the percentages are also modified to cover the max possible scenarios that would occur. Not all of us in the bank, there's different funds and different things that are set up. A lot of it's in U.S. Treasuries, for example. So we're in good hands there.
I make a motion that we accept the quarterly report from the county treasurer's investment of funds ending March 31st, 2022.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
So do I have a motion to adjourn? That covers our agenda for tonight.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.